Welcome back to episode 77 of In the Shadow of the Evening Trees. I'm Jen Von Ebers.
I'm Dave Von Ebers.
And this is episode 2 of our vacation. And so we are cheersing to, if you're listening to this, our fancy tequila that we bought in Mexico and Cozumel.
And we're still drinking. You can see, however, that we've been very good about it.
We have.
Because a week has passed and there's barely any gone.
And you can't actually see it, but if you're watching this video, you can't see my shirt, but it's Cozumel.
Mine is also, it's very goofy. It has kind of a sugar skull motif.
I like it.
It's goofy. It's the most touristy thing I've ever gotten in my life.
It's a good memento.
It's, yes.
So our episode 1 rambled along because someone kept on talking about our trip, and that someone was me.
That's okay. That's why you have a podcast, to talk.
Exactly. That's why we're here. So since we couldn't cram everything into our first thing, it's sublime, basically. Yeah, this is really good. Since we couldn't fit it all into one episode, this is episode 2. And this one is like talking about firsts. I did a lot of firsts things on this trip that I've never done before. You had been snorkeling before, so you had some experience, although it has been many years since you had.
Many years, and I also did it under much calmer conditions.
Yes, we were talking about that because, first we'll get into it because one of the excursions that we signed up, really like the day that we got there, or the next day, was the snorkeling. Two trips that it talked about snorkeling. We talked about the Jeep tour that we did. That had the mini, about a 40-minute snorkeling, very shallow water experience. But then the big one was on Thursday when we were there that week, and it was like 5 hours. I mean,
the whole trip
was.
For sure, yeah.
So also within walking distance of our resort was the dock where the boat picked us up. We really had no idea what we're getting into. They did not really explain it that much of what we were doing and everything, but we're like, let's just go for it. Yes. Luckily for us, we saw a couple or family that was staying in our resort who we'd seen over and over again. So there were familiar faces on the boat.
True.
We became friends with them. And so that made it a little bit better. I think the best part for me was doing the mini snorkeling first because I was still scared.
Yeah, because you're going off a boat.
Yeah. And when we went on the big trip, we were, we picked up other people in a few other resorts. We were on the top part of the boat, which was fun.
Yes.
Super windy. I was hanging on to the side. David was like in the middle. I'm hanging on to him for dear life. You're not hanging on to anything. So it's just kind of like, I don't know what would happen.
Well, the good thing is we don't get seasick.
Yes,
which
thank
is
goodness.
huge.
Yes.
We don't get many opportunities to be on boats, but I've been on sailboats and I've been on other things, and I actually really enjoy the sensation of being on a boat. So that's and as we learned, apparently you don't grow out of not getting seasick. All of a sudden, I was thinking like, well, what happens if since it's been many years? I mean, I don't count the Staten Island ferry or things like that. But since it's been many years since I've been on like a real boat out on the ocean, would I still not get seasick? Turns out the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So that's good.
And one of the questions I did ask before we booked this, I was like, is there a bathroom on the boat? That was
That's key.
And they're like, yes. So I think that was very nice that you
what else did they say?
The bathroom, the ocean is your bathroom.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, there's a bathroom on the boat, but you're going to be in the water. And
so... yeah.
It all ends up in the same place because the bathroom in the boat empties out into the water.
Yeah. So there's that. But they didn't give you a lot of advice. They didn't even really ask anybody if that was your first time snorkeling or any kind of thing. They just handed you your mask, your the thing that goes into the mask.
The snorkel.
Yeah. And we did have the option of not using fins. And so we did not. For this part, which probably would have helped us a little bit going in the water, because once we got to the first destination, they basically went to a destination, we got to dive, climb back in the boat, go to somewhere else, get back off the boat, and snorkel, come back, and we did that several times.
Yeah.
And the first time when we got to the thing, they're like, okay, you can jump off the side of the boat, or you can walk to the back and then step off. They had a little ladder, and I was like, I'm stepping off the ladder.
Yeah, it was a little easier for sure.
But I wasn't.
Although you had to climb down from the top and walk along the narrow edge.
Yes, yeah.
But that's okay.
But I wasn't expecting, like, I mean, we're in the middle of the ocean, you know, kind of thing. And I wasn't expecting the waves to be, like, really, like, big, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
they were
it
real
wasn't
waves.
like being in where you had snorkeled before, where it was just, like, calm water and things like that. So a little bit when I first started, I started to panic a little bit. And I was just like, just put your face in the water, you know, and just calm down. But kudos to David, because he stayed with me the whole time. He was always aware of where it was. We held hands at one point. And then that made me feel better, because then it wasn't like I was totally by myself, even though we were with other people. We were with the guide and stuff like that. But I liked that you were there all the time for me. So,
Well, there you go.
thank you.
And the two, I think I may have said this on the last episode, but I'll say it again anyway. The two places that I had snorkeled in the past were Hawks Nest Bay in St. John, which is a very calm bay off of the island. And, so the water is very, very placid, basically, or at least it was that day. And then the other place was an inland lagoon called Xel-Há in the Yucatan Peninsula. And of course, since it's a lagoon, I mean, the ocean feeds it. It's salt water, but it's a lagoon that's protected. And again, it's like swimming in a pool.
Right.
So these both, well, and this is true of the first snorkeling trip when we went out from the beach into the relatively shallow water, and when we went off the boat, it was a little bit wavier. Is that a word?
I think
wavier?
it is wavier.
There were more waves in both occasions. The interesting thing was the choice of fins or not using fins, because we don't do this very much. I mean, I only snorkeled a couple times before. I find it's a little awkward and difficult to use them. So I thought when we did the first trip, you didn't really have an option.
Right.
You had to, which is fine. But I think in open water, it may be better to have them. And we were fine. We were
fine, but we would have been able to swim faster to
Yes.
the boat when we were getting back on the boat than trying to do it with your legs, you know, kind of thing. But I think the thing that I loved the most the first time, after I was just like, don't panic, Jennifer, just put your face in the water and just see what's down there. That first spot that we went to, it was literally like looking in an aquarium.
Oh, yeah.
It went way far down and everything. And the types of fish that we saw, beautiful, gorgeous, very cool. And as I mentioned before, they said, don't touch anything, don't take anything. You couldn't have really gotten anything off the bottom anyway, so that wasn't a possibility. But there were fish around us, and I just kept on having my hands out. I was like, you can touch my hands if you want. No fish took it.
They didn't take the
They didn't take that.
The other thing was that the first time we snorkeled off the beach, you had to wear a life vest, which is fine. I prefer to stay on the surface anyway, and it keeps you up on the surface, and that's fine. The second trip on the boat, they handed out kind of like the life vests you'd have on an airplane.
Yes.
That are inflatable. And it didn't really occur to me why they did that, because they said everyone has to wear one. But you actually, if you wanted to free dive, you could put it on, but not inflate it. And then if you in an emergency, if you needed to inflate it, you could inflate it. I didn't really think that through. So there were some people who had them on, but they didn't inflate them. And they were maybe a little bit more experienced. And so they did free dive and go down much further. And I probably wouldn't have done that anyway, but I just didn't really think it through, because I kind of thought it was odd that they were giving us the inflatable vest. And then after I saw people going under and going down pretty deep, I'm like, well, okay, that makes sense, because it gives you the option.
Right.
If you have a regular life vest on, you're not getting under
Yeah.
the water.
And I made the mistake of blowing mine up too much.
Oh, I did that too.
So then
yeah.
when I got in there, it was like close to my neck and everything. And I was like too buoyant,
Yeah,
kind of thing. And
right.
I like had to pull it down because it was like coming up against my neck and everything, and I was like holding it down while I had my face in there. So when we came up the second time, I like deflated some of the air in there because that was not necessary.
But again, it was a really fun trip, and they were very good in a lot of ways, but they didn't provide a lot of explanations.
I know,
so we
it's
had to
just
kind of
like
figure it out.
good luck, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But like David said, they were super nice and fun. So the first part, we just kind of saw what was down there and everything, and then we got back on the boat, went to another part where we saw giant turtles.
The turtles were cool.
Were huge,
Really cool.
just like in Finding Nemo.
And
you could see them on the bottom, just kind of like grazing on the bottom and things like that. The fish that are like really flat, which I think is so fun, blue and yellow stripes and all different colors, was amazing. And then starfish, tons of starfish.
That was cool.
That were just down at the bottom and everything. You couldn't actually go down there. But one of the people in our group had a GoPro camera.
Yeah.
And at one place that we went to, the instructor was trying to dive down to get lobster to come out.
Right, because there were lobster underneath, some rock form. Well, underneath coral, actually, because it's a reef. Yeah.
But he took that person's camera and went down there to record it, to try to do it. The lobster didn't come out. We didn't actually see lobster. But it was fun just to see somebody who's got experience to like go under the water and just kind of be like, that's crazy. That's your job. That's your job.
Yeah. And they were really good. I mean, they dove a lot. They went under, pretty far down. To just sometimes just to point things out for the rest of us, and sometimes to like they tried to get the pictures of lobster or whatever. But, did not see any eels. I was a little disappointed. No moray eels.
But we did see the
the stingrays.
The stingrays.
That was awesome.
Okay, so then at the very end, best part, one of the best parts of the trip was getting to a very shallow, sandbar. Kind of thing. So the boat came in really close.
Which was kind of an actual bar, but we'll get to that.
Yes. So we got off the boat there, and the water was like maybe up to my waist, a little bit higher than my waist. So it wasn't deep at all, so you could stand and stuff like that. And they had the stingrays just
multiple
going
stingrays
around your feet, going around your body, everything, and just
very cool.
Never been that close in my life.
No.
So that was kind of crazy town. So in that, they did say there's drinks and snacks.
I think we actually did talk a little bit about this last time, but it's worth repeating because it was fun.
So the guy got back on the boat, had a big bucket of beer. Tequila came out, had cervezas, and people were doing shots of tequila and stuff like that. And then we
were well behaved.
Yeah, and then there was finger sandwiches, I guess you could call them. And
that's what I would call them. That's exactly right.
And cut up apple slices.
It was kind of like high tea.
Yeah, it was. It was really highbrow.
High tea with booze.
I didn't have the tea sandwiches, but we did have some of the apple with tahini on it, which was delicious.
Oh, it really was.
And then the ride back to our resort was just spectacular. It was, if you look on our Instagram, at Jen and Dave, if you're watching this here, go a few slides back, because you can see
_Dave.
You can see we have a whole video of our montage of our that snorkeling trip, so you can just see fun. The weather was spectacular. The water was as warm as bath. I mean, it wasn't. At no time did you go in the water and be like, "This is freezing," or "I can't stay in here very long."
The water in the ocean was warmer, not by a huge amount, but it was warmer than the pool.
Yes.
And the pool is fine. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, you had to get really kind of. It took a few minutes to get used to the water temperature in the actual pool.
Well, that little drop-off helped.
Yes, exactly.
It was kind of a strange design for a pool, because it was kind of a shelf, like really for little kids, because there were families there, which we talked about the last time. And then it had maybe a 3-foot drop-off.
Yes.
Just an awkward
And you couldn't
distance.
see it at all. So the first time we got in there, we knew that there was like a little shelf and everything.
Yeah.
And I just assumed that it kind of just gradually went down and everything. Yeah. And so we're walking, and all of a sudden it's like, doop. And the water's like up to here. I was like, okay.
And it was an awkward distance, because first of all, if had it been much deeper, or a larger drop off, you probably could have seen it better. That's one thing.
Right.
But then the other thing was, when you're coming back the other way and you had to climb up onto that ledge to get out of the pool, that was also pretty awkward.
But we did it many times.
This is why, speaking of first, I've decided I have to take up yoga, there were a number of things that occurred where I was like feeling very, very awkward and uncoordinated, like trying to. We're not tall people,
No.
and I, in particular, am not only not tall, but I have short legs. So I shouldn't be saying this because nobody needs to know this. But it just was a very awkward thing trying to get out of that pool. And I'm like,
it's like almost like, putting your hand out there. You're like, step in my hand. Get up.
And when we went into the beach, into the water by the beach, it also kind of would drop off a little bit. Not any, not like 3 feet.
Right.
But there would be a little bit of a drop off, and I'm like, oh my God, I am so uncoordinated. And the sand, your feet really sunk into the sand, and so that was a little embarrassing. Since we're all telling embarrassing stories.
Exactly.
Thank God no one's listening. But now I'm gonna have to take up yoga so I can have a little bit more balance.
But all in all, it was like a fantastic trip, and one of the things that is just like, don't be afraid to try something out of your wheelhouse and out of your comfort zone, because that definitely was one of mine. Because I'm not an adept swimmer. I can swim, but it's not something that it's just like, oh yeah, let me just go in the ocean and like do all this stuff and everything and climb on and off a boat and things like that. However, I did tell David one of the things that that I just kind of reflected on from our whole trip is whatever we decided to do and the excursions, what we were doing, we never had to have a hesitation of like, no, we're not able to do that physically,
yes.
Kind of thing.
All the more reason why I got to do the yoga.
Right. You could be scared to do something, but not being able to do it because you physically think like, oh, I don't think I can pull myself on and off the boat, or I don't think I can, climb the top of a lighthouse, which we did. Like none of those things were anything that was a barrier for us. So in that capacity, I thought it was a win.
Yeah. Although it is this whole thing about the pool and the going into the ocean being a little bit awkward is, there's Kurt Vonnegut, the novelist, said many years ago, obviously, many years ago, he said something about how he felt very uncoordinated on land, but when he was in water, he felt very kind of graceful. And that's always been my thing. I always think about the Kurt Vonnegut thing because I was a swimmer in high school and all that, done triathlons, everything. I always feel very comfortable in the water until this trip to Mexico.
Yeah, you swam in Lake Michigan, which on a triathlon, which is insane.
Yeah.
And David said it's pretty much like when we first got in there with snorkeling with other people. He's like, it's kind of like doing the triathlon except with like 100 more people.
Yeah. The triathlon.
Kicking and
the triathlon.
flailing and kicking at you.
The swimming part, which of course they do first for good reason, because you don't want to throw a bunch of people in the water when they're physically exhausted from biking and running.
Hope you don't drown.
Yeah. But that part of it is a full contact sport. People are kicking you in the face. People are flailing around. That is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Till you get going. I mean, once you get away from the start, then it's
I would
not
do
so
that
bad.
if I could hold on to a noodle. And then
They should have that kind of triathlon.
They should have
They
that.
should have a triathlon for the rest of us.
Exactly.
You could be on a floaty with a beer.
You could rollerblade instead of run.
Well, that's
also athletics.
Yeah, I was going to say you could. I couldn't. I'd rather risk, just trying to do the run again because I'd break my neck on rollerblade.
But it was kind of like a good mix between doing excursions and having like a rest day, which was nice to just be able to do whatever we wanted to and not have to feel like you were like rushed. And also like having a lot of things to do on vacation is fun, but then it's like one of the points is to relax and like recharge, kind of thing. And if you get home and you're like, I didn't even sit down for like 2 seconds because we were like run. So that part I enjoyed because it was just kind of like just chilling and talking and having some drinks, breakfast on the beach.
And that's the thing about if we talk because we've talked about our trips to Ireland and our trips to New York and other places. And the thing is that one of the things about doing too many things when you're on a trip is that mentally it makes the time seem to go by much faster. Yeah. So you're having fun, you're enjoying it, but then it feels like the trip is over before you know it. And so there's a definite advantage to kind of pacing yourself a little bit. And that's why a lot of times when we've gone to, places like New York is sort of, to me, the classic example is you don't really have to have a plan.
No.
Because there's so much going on, especially if you go in the summer, which we've done once or twice. Or, I mean, there's really no bad time to go there.
Not at all.
But, there's always something to do. And we've kind of had some plan, because the New York trips are not like a full week typically. They're like a long weekend. And we've typically had some plans. But by and large, it's really just, walk out the door and kind of go and see what you can see. And even when we've gone to Ireland, because Dublin and a lot of the cities there, Dublin and Cork in particular, are very, very walkable, you really just, it gives you the opportunity to just get out the door and go see stuff.
Yeah.
But this was more like, I mean, it made sense to plan some specific things.
If you didn't do anything, it probably would have been like, okay, you probably would have gotten stir crazy, kind of thing of just like, okay, I'd like to do something different kind of thing. So it was a good mix of, going into downtown Cozumel a few times, doing these trips, and then doing that. So one of the things that we got accustomed to is for a Hyatt hotel, even though we didn't become members of what they wanted us to buy, the ultimate vacation
club
package for lifetime,
like
for the rest of eternity.
For going on and beyond the grave, apparently, because, well, whatever.
Yeah.
We talked about that the last time.
The one thing that they did have was a nice app that you could switch back and forth to all 3 resorts that we had access to. So you could see all the restaurants, which ones were open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, what activities they had, and everything that they were doing. So then we can kind of like see what was happening, kind of thing. So they did have one night they had Mayan dancers, which was very cool.
Yeah, I thought that was
like a
very
whole
cool.
routine and everything. We talked last time about the magician show, which was so.
It was fun. We enjoyed ourselves because we were hanging out with our friends from Kentucky.
Yes, and we're now friends on Instagram. So now I can see when their babies are going to be born. But anyway, I had seen, I think on Monday night, that there was going to be a karaoke night in our hotel, in our resort area, followed up by a later karaoke in the resort, which was the adults only, called Secrets, which was 2 doors down.
Down the beach. Yeah.
So I told David, I'm like, should I do karaoke? And I was like thinking about it, but I kept on talking about it because I really wanted to do it, but then I didn't want to do it. And I kept on talking myself into it and then talking myself out of it. So that Wednesday was coming around and we were in the lobby, so we were available if it became a thing. And so I was just like, I still don't know if I want to do it. So for those of you who follow me at Jen Cooks on Instagram, I put a story on there. Should I do karaoke? And 99% said yes and 1% said no. And I was like, you haven't even heard me sing.
Point out, that's right. I do have to point out that before you posted that and before we showed up, you had picked out a song.
I did.
So you were not unprepared.
For sure, yeah. It wasn't like I was just like, oh, now what? Kind of thing. So I sang Time After Time.
True Colors.
True Colors. That's part of the lyric.
No, that's a different song.
Oh, yeah.
Time After Time is a different song.
I sang Cyndi Lauper.
You sang Cyndi Lauper. That's
I know the
point.
lyrics by heart, so that helped a little bit. They still have the prompters and everything. So but I didn't want to be the first one to do it. And the guy came over with a clipboard and was like, "Hey, you guys want to do it?" And David's like, "No." And I was like, "I think I do." There was 2 people ahead of us.
Well, I said I was your manager.
You were my manager and videographer.
Yeah, that's
which is
right.
part of the management
right.
position,
Right.
basically.
I'm your social media person.
Yes. And so there's 2 people who had signed up before me. So I was like, okay, that's good. So I will be the 3rd person. That's fine. The first 2 people that got up were 2 preteen girls, and they sang a Taylor Swift song.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, I can totally do this. And then the second person, actually, her name was also Jennifer,
That's
and
right.
Was actually really good. So,
yes.
And then it's like, okay, and then now another Jennifer, come on up and everything. To be honest, I wasn't even. I thought I would be like more scared of like just being like shaky and stuff like that. I actually was not. So that was kind of crazy. Yeah. So I did it, and then David recorded it. We'll actually put it up on we weren't able to put the whole thing up on our Instagram because it's like 3 minutes long. So we will have to put it on our YouTube channel so people can see.
We have to put both of them though.
Yes.
But I'm getting ahead of myself.
So after the high of that, experience. And this karaoke was ending at our resort. We ended up walking down to the other resort. They had karaoke going on till 1 a.m.
Yeah.
So that, and we got there probably at like 10:30 or something like that. So
Had it already started?
it had already started.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so, and again, they came around with a clipboard and everything. And so I was just like, I will sing the same song, kind of thing. So waited it out and then got up there. More people, way more people than it was at the first time and everything. And so I said, this is my second time doing karaoke. The first time was at my first debut was about an hour ago at the resort 2 doors down. So here I am for an encore performance, and I'm so glad you're here, kind of thing. And I did it that time too. So it was very fun. So Vacation Jen is a little more daring, a little more outgoing, a little bit more not afraid to take risks.
But now you have to do karaoke in the United States because you can say that you're an international karaoke star because but you can't really say you're a worldwide karaoke star, like the guy who was on Jeopardy, who was a worldwide karaoke star and actually, if I remember correctly, won. So we'll have to find some opportunities for you to do it here. I just bumped your leg.
That's okay.
That wasn't like a signal, like kicking your foot to say.
Yeah. But we did see a gentleman who had won Jeopardy when we got back, who did say he was an international karaoke star. He had sang karaoke in all 50 states and something like 40 countries.
Yeah.
So that's a dedication. That's like your life. I don't even know how that you could possibly do that, but he must be good.
He probably also has a little money.
Yeah,
that's
some
my
money.
guess.
Yeah, because I don't know how you can just do that.
I don't mean that in a negative way.
No.
But to be able to afford to travel, unless you're getting paid for the karaoke, maybe.
Yeah, maybe he's got a karaoke manager.
Yeah.
Maybe that could be your thing.
That could be my thing. Yeah, I'm not doing it myself. I used to be able to sing. But I sang in choir, and the thing there is in high school, and I would sing a lot. I got strong-armed into going out for choir because I hung out with a lot of people who were really, really talented musicians, and they played instruments and they sang and everything like that. But I was like, I was one of those kids who'd always sing along to what was ever on the radio, and they're like, "Oh, you can sing, and so you should try out for it." Well, first of all, it turns out that the only reason why I could sing along with stuff on the radio is because you're just following what the singer is already doing.
Right.
And as long as you have a good enough ear to hit the same notes, it's easy. So my problem is I'm going to blame it on guitar playing.
Okay.
But I feel like guitar playing ruined it because most of the stuff that I play on guitar is really simple stuff, and it's all stuff that I'm really familiar with, and I know the words to the songs and everything like that. But my sort of ADD brain won't let I can't focus on the chords I'm playing and the melody because they're not the same. The melody kind of goes on top of the chords, right? So, and that's the other thing about being in choir is everybody's singing the same thing, although you are singing different parts, but it's still, you're all singing the same thing. And I was a tenor, so it was mostly the melody anyway.
Yeah, that is nice. My mom is in a choir, and sometimes some of the songs that they do are complicated and things like that. And I was like, if you can't figure it out, then just kind of mouth the words. But then I was like, what if everybody was given that advice and then the choir's silent?
But they do
that wouldn't work.
They do tell you that, and they tell kids like if you're in orchestra and you lose your place, you don't keep playing, but you kind of like if you're playing a violin or viola, you pretend like. But there is a reason for that, though. It's because that helps you find your place. Because it requires you kind of keep the rhythm in your head, and then when you're familiar with where you're supposed to be, then you can jump back in. So it actually is good advice if you're at a choir. It is. And also, a choir director doesn't want you just standing there like, with your mouth open, not even pretending to be singing, because then it's going to be obvious.
For sure. So whether you're watching this on our Instagram or YouTube or our website,
or on Apple
Podcasts. I'm just curious if you have ever tried karaoke. Is that your thing, or do you just like watching it? A lot of people just like going to watch people.
Yeah, but that's.
I bet you there's one in our town. I'm gonna have to Google it.
Oh, I'm sure. Maybe at that bar that's next door to the tattoo place down the street from us.
The Fog Hatter or something.
Fog Cutter.
Fog Cutter. Yeah. It's a little dicey. But I bet they do that.
Yeah. You got to go into some place where they have chicken wire around the stage, like in the Blues Brothers.
Yes.
We play both kinds, country and western.
So it was a great experience, and I was happy that I went through with it, because had I come home and I didn't do it, I would have been mad at myself for not trying. So for trying snorkeling and karaoke, and it also
killing it at both.
Well, thank you. It's kind of funny when you think about, like, I just turned 57, and when you think about like things like, how can I be 57 and trying something new, kind of thing. But there's so many things that you can do or think about doing. It's like, don't hold that as a thing like, well, I'm too old to do that, or I can't try it because I've never done it before, kind of thing. So that's my advice.
Well, and that's what I always thought about playing an instrument too, because like I said, I mean, I was a singer in high school and stuff like that, but I just kind of felt like, well, that really wasn't for me, playing an instrument. And the only reason why I actually thought about, when we took lessons, we started, when was it? It was
2019.
No, I think it was earlier than that. No, it had to have been because
because
of the pandemic.
Yeah.
It was, I had a brother who was a really good guitar player, and he passed away in 2009. And, that was just something kind of I'm not getting choked up. I'm not. That was just something kind of on my mind, because we connected a lot through music. I used to go see him play all the time. Mm-hmm. We had similar tastes in music and this, that, and the other thing. In fact, we just, on the same note, just went to see last Friday night one of our favorite bands, the Mavericks, who we've raved about for many years, and Dwight Yoakam up in Milwaukee. And my brother, at one point in his career, played a lot of country music, so I kind of got into that. And that's how I even discovered the Mavericks, was through my brother. Anyway,
right.
So it was really more to kind of like, I don't know, sort of have a connection with my brother that I wanted to, my unfortunately deceased brother, that I wanted to start to play. But then you realize that, it's difficult to be good at it, right? But it's not that difficult to just play.
For sure.
Right? Like you can, and I was well into my 50s by the time we picked it up. And within the first couple of classes, you're like, yeah, this is totally something I can do. I'm terrible. I'm not afraid to admit that I'm terrible.
The intro is your guitar playing.
The intro to
so
our
that
podcast.
So that is something.
I wrote that song.
You did.
I did.
You're a published
copyright.
Yeah.
Whenever it was. I needed to start a publishing company.
Right. So yeah, I mean, it is just something that I'm just super happy that I tried new things and it worked out, and it was amazing.
Now we're gonna do bungee jumping, skydiving.
Yeah, no. Kayaking.
I'm gonna learn to play bagpipes.
Paddleboarding. I'm gonna learn how to play saxophone.
That would be cool.
I thought you were gonna say that. Now that I'd pay money to see.
No. I didn't.
It's one of those things I've had dreams where I'm like, I almost like a Kenny G level saxophone player.
Yeah, you don't want to be Kenny G.
But from nowhere, just being like, I think I want to play the saxophone, and then I'm like touring with people and knowing the music, and then doing like, kind of like Clarence in the
Clarence.
And just being like so good. But I've never played a wind instrument, so I'm not sure how that would go.
I don't know. If you pick it up, then you can play clarinet as well, since it's the same finger.
That is true. And it's also, wait, is a saxophone, is that a reed instrument?
It is a reed instrument,
okay.
Actually. So it's a clarinet. That is true.
All of a sudden I was like, I don't know if that is. But so it was, the best part is, then that was like, so that Wednesday night, then we had our excursion on Thursday. On Friday, the last day of our vacation, was a chill day. So we actually spent a lot of time in the ocean. And we ended up climbing, as we mentioned before, in case you missed it, where the beach was, where the resort was. You could walk out just a little tiny bit, and then it was like really hard and very rocky, but you could swim over that to like a little sandy area, and then you could stand up. The water was like up to my neck. So it wasn't super, you didn't have to like tread water or anything. But like I said before, the temperature of the water was just so amazing. You could just stay in there all day. kind of thing.
And we struck up another conversation.
We
I
did.
can't remember.
The
That guy
gentleman
was
from Arizona.
from Arizona. That's right. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we're just sitting there talking and everything, and this guy is like walking by. He did have a snorkeling mask on and
Yes.
everything, so we were like, I wonder if there's anything underneath there. He didn't see anything, so that's how we struck up the conversation. Like, is there anything down there? And he's like, no. But it was still so clear, like I could look down and see my toes, so it wasn't scary. But in that part, you could see the rocks that were very rocky,
Yeah.
that you could not put your feet on, or else it would really hurt.
Which I managed to do.
Yeah, and my sister had given me 2 pairs of, she had sandals that were like you could wear in the ocean, and almost like a pair of like slip-on shoes kind of thing.
Yeah.
I took the sandals. I left the slip-on shoes because I was like, I had so much in my suitcase anyway. I was just like, I'm not gonna keep it. But then those sandals were a little bit too tight, so I was just like, okay, now I have nothing. But those would have been nice to have. Then you wouldn't have had to worry
They
about
would
it.
have. Yeah, they would have. We figured it out. It took a few attempts to figure out how to do it safely, but we did. And it was just a lot of fun.
It was amazing. So it was a great way to celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary and, meet people, try something out of your comfort zone. And it was a good time all the way around.
And no casino this time.
No casino. We were talking about that for my 50th birthday. David made reservations for the, it was the Baja,
Baha Mar.
Yeah, Baja Mar.
In Nassau.
The Bahamas. And that place also a resort, not inclusive, very expensive.
A little pricey, yes.
And, but football field, big of indoor casinos.
Oh yeah, that casino.
And you could smoke cigarettes in there. And
We
everything.
didn't.
Yeah. But you're in paradise.
Because those things will kill you.
You have the ocean, you have all these pools and everything, and then there are people who just stayed inside the casino all day. I was like, what are you doing? And I followed that resort on Instagram, that they took a big portion of the casinos and made it into a jazz club kind of thing, and that John Baptiste is going to be a recurring resident there. So
Nice.
That would have been amazing.
Would have been. And I will say that we talked a little bit about this before with the all-inclusive place that we were at in Cozumel. You know, the restaurants were very accessible. The food wasn't always great.
Right.
I mean, it was perfectly edible and
Sure.
fine and all that. But I will say Baha Mar and I think there are a total of 3 resorts there as well. But one of them, I want to say was still under construction. But the other one, the SLS, Baha Mar and SLS had actually, I thought, really good food. And then we did go out of the properties.
Yes.
But anyway.
Well, and that's the other thing too that is a benefit of doing something of staying at an all-inclusive resort. There's some that there really is nothing out there except around that you can do. So you also have to keep that in mind. If that's the kind of vacation where you're just like you have to stay in the resort area, even though there's a lot of amenities and everything, you're not going to be doing that many excursions. So definitely find out if there's other things that you can do to get off the property, even to go to the downtown area of that where you're staying at, just to kind of get a change of scenery if you don't like that. So that's one thing that we like to do, is not be stuck in one place where you can't just try other things.
And that is one thing. I mean, there's a lot to do in Cozumel, even though most of the island is pretty undeveloped. There's nature reserves. There are all kinds of places where you can scuba and snorkel.
Yep.
The town itself has restaurants and shops and all that kind of stuff. But you don't need to be stuck in a resort when you're there. Sure. There's a lot going on.
Yes. So it was definitely one for the books. And we have lots of pictures. I think I have like 350 pictures just from that week. So a lot to still comb through and check out. And we shared a lot on our Instagram too, so you can check that out too.
That is true.
But we had a wonderful weekend. Our youngest daughter came for 24 hours to visit. I say the weekend, but she has to work, and so she didn't get to leave until like Saturday morning, and then she'd left this morning. But she came to hand deliver my birthday gifts for me. So I thought that was quite sweet.
Very nice.
And Claire, if you're watching this, I love you.
We love you, Claire.
We love you. Thanks for coming to visit. So she and I went thrifting yesterday, which we like to do, and we had a nice dinner last night. So it's been a busy weekend. And we did walking club yesterday morning. So it's been a full weekend.
And you came back and I was beating the hell out of the guitar.
Yes, you were. You were jamming.
But not singing.
So definitely, if you have any questions about us or for us about our vacation or how we planned it or anything like that, definitely leave us a comment and
And let us know about your karaoke experiences.
Yes.
And when you'd like to see Jen next perform karaoke.
Right.
We could do that. We could do the because it's all like YouTube. You could find YouTube videos. You could do karaoke on the podcast.
Okay.
Can I put you on the spot?
Yes. I don't know if I'm ready for that, but it could be a funny thing of just like, where's Jen doing karaoke next? And it could be like some town kind of thing. But we appreciate you following us and for part two. And we will definitely talk to you next time. Good night.
Good night.